Hello, I'm Krystal and a very warm welcome to a special show all about the National Health Service. We are broadcasting live from the Queen Alexandra Hospital here in Cosham, Portsmouth, and I am joined by my co-presenters, Jake and Declan. If you'd like to get in touch with us at any point during today's show, then feel free to contact us on our social media sites on Facebook at CCI TV channel and Twitter at CCI TV.
Before we go any further, I think it's a good idea for me and Dec to go and find some people around the hospital to help give us a into this fantastic institution. Declan, shall we go?
Yeah, let's do it.
So let's give this programme some context. The NHS is 70 years old on July the 5th, 2018. You can join in and share your memories by using the hashtag NHS70. It all started in 1948 via the Minister of Health, Aneurin Bevan, who believed the healthcare should be free to all, and if we look back at the original document, it stated very clearly that the National Health Service will provide you all with the medical, dental and nursing care. Everybody rich or poor, man, woman or child. Inspirational stuff. There are so many key historic moments of the NHS to choose from. This amazing institution is constantly pushing the boundaries of medicine, and for example, one of the most famous historical moments happened on the 25th of June 1978 when the first ever IVF or test tube baby was born, Louise Brown. This technique is accredited to Dr. Patrick Steptoe and Dr. Robert Edwards, and now more than 1 million children have been conceived via this method worldwide. The NHS employs approximately 1.7 million people nationwide, making it the largest in the UK, and it is the 5th biggest employer in the world. The National Health Service. How are you going to celebrate this worthy birthday? Can you support this NHS in any way? Use the hashtag NHS70 or at NHS70.
My name's Kelly Bicknell. I'm a clinical scientist here in microbiology at Portsmouth. So I work with part of the clinical team in micro, and microbiology is concerned with infectious diseases and about diagnosing viruses, fungus, bacteria and parasites, and getting a clinical diagnosis for the patient. My day-to-day job is involved in, as part of the clinical team, involves clinical duty, which is advising doctors on what their patients and conditions might be, the best way to go about investigating. The laboratory undertakes the investigations, and then I advise upon the appropriate management and treatment based on those results. I also get involved in laboratory development as part of that role, which is making sure that we're implementing and have the best possible tests available for patients. So I started working in the NHS 8 years ago as a trainee biomedical scientist up at Royal Preston Hospital. Then I moved here 5 years ago, 3 years into my career, to train as a clinical scientist. So I think the NHS is brilliant in what it's able to achieve and what it's achieved to date. It's one of those we have a constitution which has several points in it that really sort of ring true to me, and that is about providing patients with care at the point of need, regardless of ability to pay. It's also about providing the best quality of care that we can in a very tight fiscal climate. So in the lab we use absolutely loads of different types of technology. We use a lot of very traditional methods as well. So in microbiology you're looking at bugs down the microscope, you're growing them on agar plates and looking at where they're happy, and that can get you a diagnosis. But we've also moved to using much more advanced methods. So we use something called mass spectrometry, which uses lasers to identify the bugs, and we use molecular methods which give you a very rapid diagnosis. So from a lab point of view, there's absolutely loads of advances going on all the time. So the thing I like about working at the hospital and about working for the NHS is that at the end of the day, when you go home, you know you've done something that matters. So you've made a difference to somebody's life, that the work is adding value and really having an impact. And working outside of the NHS, I've done the same sort of job, but it doesn't have that same job satisfaction. So I think it's going to be really, really challenging going forwards, because we've got an ageing population, a growing need, and a reduction in sort of finances and budget cuts. So I think it's going to be really important that we all take care of our own health and do things that are preventative, but we also make sure that there's appropriate funding for the services that are needed. In terms of my own field, there's always something new. So we've had the emergence of Ebola in the last few years, and we've had the emergence of Zika virus more recently. So there's always going to be something novel and exciting and a new challenge. So antimicrobial resistance is another thing we're really sort of combating against. So I think there's always going to be something new.
Part of this programme is to celebrate the 70th birthday of the NHS, but also to celebrate exactly what the service is and what it offers everybody that lives in the UK. I am now joined by Bev, who is a matron at the Queen Alexandra Hospital. So, can you tell us a bit about yourself, Bev?
Well, I've been a nurse for, let's say, more than 30 years.
Yep.
We'll leave the exact number out of it. So I've been working in the NHS, mainly in Portsmouth. I've worked internationally as well,
Yep.
but always come back to the NHS. That's where my heart is.
Okay, and what made you want to get into this profession?
I think from a young age, I always want to do a job where I could make a difference.
Yep.
And the NHS and being a nurse was a job that fitted the bill.
Yeah. So, what do you enjoy most about your job?
I think really most of my career has been spent looking after older people in the NHS,
Yeah.
and the diversity of looking after frail older people is very much a challenge, but equally you go home at the end of the day knowing that you've made a difference, and that's what's important to nurses.
Okay. So, obviously I'm aware that working in a hospital can be quite stressful. How do you
can.
balance your work life with your leisure?
Well, I'm very lucky that I have a husband and 2 children,
Yeah.
but a husband who's very nurturing. He's a school teacher, so we've always had a balance that at weekends is sacrosanct, with our children, and you're
That's
making
nice.
time to relax and do the things that we want to do.
That's really lovely. So, since working at the Queen Alexandra Hospital, what has been your biggest achievement?
Well, I think the biggest achievement is becoming a matron and helping and supporting other people. I mean, I'm actually a retired matron. I retired from the NHS over a year ago,
Yeah.
but I've come back to work in a capacity where I can help and support more junior staff,
Yeah.
but not doing the number of hours that I was doing previously. So again, making a difference every day.
Wow, that is absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
How do you deal with pressure at work?
Pressure's difficult, and I think you have to be quite a balanced person,
Yeah.
maintain the professional dignity at work, but also, as a senior nurse, helping and support junior staff to enable them to get over the pressures of day-to-day work.
Yeah.
A smiling face, encouraging people to take a break, and knowing when, if you've had enough, step away and let somebody else take over.
Yeah. So, what are your daily tasks as a matron? What do you have to do?
At the moment, I'm working in respiratory wards within medicine,
Okay.
helping and supporting a junior sister
Yeah.
who's not long been in post, and that's really rewarding, helping somebody who's struggling with their current post to enable them to see the way forward and focus on what's important.
That's really good. Thank you very much for that.
Pleasure.
Feeding patients and staff is a major operation, and the catering team provides 3,300 patient meals and food and beverage for in excess of 1,000 visitors to the B and E level restaurants per day.
I'm here with Queen Alexandra Chief Executive Mark Cubban. Thank you for joining us, Mark.
Thank you.
Could you please elaborate on what your role is within this hospital?
Yeah, so I'm the Chief Executive of this trust. So we are one of the biggest trusts, biggest hospitals in the South East Coast, and I suppose my day-to-day responsibility is to make sure that our patients are safe here, we provide the best possible care for our patients, and that our staff are safe and they enjoy coming to work.
Okay, so you mentioned your day-to-day routine slightly there. Would you mind expanding on that? I imagine it's quite similar most days.
It's hugely varied.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so apart from my day-to-day responsibilities in terms of getting into work and to a whole raft of meetings, I get to meet with lots of different people. So I get to meet with lots of people inside the trust, having a walkabout, getting to meet some new members of staff, but also the existing members of staff, some patients. I get out in the community quite a bit and speak to members of the public, and also work with partners in other parts of the system as well.
You're a busy man then.
Enjoyable.
Yeah. So we're here today to obviously celebrate the NHS at 70. Would you mind stating how long you've been working for the NHS?
So I've been in the NHS now for 26 years.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's quite a long time.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's loads of amazing technology around here. Is there anything that stands out for you? What's around this innovation?
Well, I think in the 26 years since I've worked in the NHS, I mean, the use of technology has transformed, it beyond what I could have envisaged at that period of time. but it's been quite impressive to see how the way that we care for patients, the way that we treat patients has really changed with the times. So here we are essentially, I don't say we're pioneers in that we were the first organisation to provide services where we use a robot for surgery.
Oh, okay.
Our surgeons do the surgery, but with the assistance of a robot.
Right. Yeah, that's good.
But we're one of the centres that have done the most procedures
Wow.
using robotic surgery in the country. So, that's down to the hard work and the pioneering work that some of our surgeons have done here and our theatre teams. But that's just an example of, the kind of advancements in care that we've seen over the years.
What are some of your reflections for working here then? That's obviously high up there, but have you got any others that...
Working in the NHS?
Yeah, working for this institution.
Working in the NHS, so I started my career off in nursing in the NHS and spent quite a bit of time working on wards and in departments and different parts of trust before I went into general management. And I've seen lots of different parts of organisations and also lots of different types of organisations. And I think the key thing for me has always been something I've been really passionate about, that it's about patients and it's about the community and it's about looking after patients to make sure that they're as well as they can be, and when they are not well, getting in there quickly to make sure that they can be treated promptly.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining us, Mark. Hope it all goes well for you in the future.
Thank you very much.
I'm Jim Can. I'm a consultant colorectal surgeon. I specialise in bowel cancer surgery, and most of my work involves rectal cancers and colon cancer operating. I've been a consultant at Portsmouth for about 10 years plus. And I trained in surgery for about 13 years before. I have used the state-of-the-art Da Vinci robotic system for the last 5 years. It has really helped us to help a lot of patients with their bowel cancer clearance and preserve their continence and control. The benefits of the technology, in my view, in simple layman terms, are mainly it allows us to perform a precise cancer operation without causing collateral damage to normal tissues. It allows us to have a very stable 3D camera view in difficult areas that we want to see. And the specialized instruments, which are expensive, but they do the job, which allow us to get into hard to reach areas with the endowrist. Obviously, the technology is quite new. Not many centres in the UK adopted that earlier on, but there has been recently a lot of interest and uptake in using the technology because people are becoming aware of the benefits. So Portsmouth at the moment is a national training centre for robotic surgery and a European training centre as well. So we get surgeons from all across Europe who come and visit us and observe the procedures and learn tips and tricks and how to perform this in their base hospitals.
Wow, we are really in an era where technology has become so advanced with so many positive impacts and contributions to our society and our health, such as the Da Vinci robot. I wonder if the NHS would have imagined that they would have been so advanced with helping to care for people when they first set up in 1948. Who knows, but they're doing a fantastic job as the years go by. Healthcare services around the world are facing the combined challenges of rising demand, escalating costs, advancing science, changing expectations, and tough economic circumstances. Meeting these challenges whilst maintaining and improving quality will not be easy, but it is essential for the sustainability of our NHS. Let's see if Jake has found anyone that can help shed some light on the working demand of the field.
So I'm here with the chair of the Hospital Trust. Thank you so much for joining us. Could you please elaborate on what your role entails?
Thank you, yes. The chairman is supposed to run the board of the trust, and the chief executive, of course, runs the trust itself. And so the chairman and the chair are both accountable to the NHS to deliver on patient care, patient safety, and within financial constraints the best we possibly can. So my role is very much looking at the reports that come up to board level about the performance of the trust, identifying where there are issues at board level and holding the executives to account to deliver.
I would imagine your day-to-day has a routine. Could you expand on the breadth of your role?
I'm not sure there is a routine. I think everybody working in the NHS accepts that it's has to be one that relates directly to the issues in hand as well as the long-term strategy. But when I come in the morning, I very much like to walk through the hospital. I probably accost people in the lifts and ask them why they're here. I then will hopefully have the opportunity of going around to see a particular team or department, talking to them as to how they feel about delivering their jobs and their patient care and their role in patient care, and then possibly a meeting, which will be a meeting probably of the executives or one of the subcommittees of the board. And then I like to talk to individuals as well. Some come and ask to see me, which is great, and that's the best thing to do. Others I will have identified as significant deliverers of care and would very much like to talk to and extend my knowledge. So last week I went to the rheumatology department and learnt how they deliver a very complex pathway of care for a lot of patients, which was hugely interesting. And the real privilege of being a chair of an NHS trust is the passion and commitment of the staff actually every day. And you go and see somebody working like that for the patients and you think, gosh, that's good. That really is. So it's really very addictive.
What makes you proud of the NHS, especially in its 70th year?
Proud of the people, proud of the continuous improvement that it's shown over the last 70 years, proud of the fact that the public supports the NHS, clearly aware that there are failings, but I think that overall the quality of care in the last even 10 years has increased significantly. And we get rates of health prevention are significantly growing, and care in the community is hugely important. But again, some of the technical interventions that many people have identified makes such a difference to people, such a difference to survival rates, quality of life, and so forth. So it's a hugely exciting, innovative, creative organisation as a whole.
And finally, what do you think the future will bring?
If you'd asked me that 20 years ago, I would never have said that some of the things that we now do, particularly this really specialised treatment of some cancers based on your actual analysis of your DNA, would have been possible. Never have thought that the complete understanding now of the data is leading to such significant improvements in pathway care. So to say what will happen in the next 10, 20 years, I do not know, except that we will go on improving and being innovative, and I think hopefully increasing the quality of life as well as the length of life of the whole population.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, and back to Krystal.
Those working for the NHS are often seen as some of the hardest workers, but that doesn't mean it's without its benefits. Holidays, flexible working and childcare support are some of the best known benefits for its employees. But the chances are there are more advantages to being a part of the NHS than you realise. I am now joined by Paul Gibbs, who is a consultant surgeon at the Queen Alexandra Hospital. So Paul, can you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Yeah, I'm one of 5 transplant surgeons here at Portsmouth. We just do kidney transplants and average at just over 100 a year here in Portsmouth.
Wow, that is a lot. That is a lot. So what made you want to get into this profession?
I think as a young boy I like fixing things, and it just seemed the natural progression.
Yeah.
And then as a surgeon you want to fix more and more things, and then with renal transplantation, replacing an organ that doesn't work always seems like the ultimate for a surgeon.
Wow, that's amazing. So what do you enjoy the most about your job?
I think it's the people I work with, the patients I look after, and seeing them after the surgery and how well they are and getting back to normal life, being able to look after their children, get back out to work, having a normal life again. After renal failure and being on dialysis, life is pretty tough. And being able to give people a good quality of life back and make them live better and longer is very rewarding.
That's amazing. So what's your biggest achievement in your role? What have you done that's biggest thing you've done at this hospital?
I think hitting 100 transplants in a year.
Yeah.
When I first started 12 years ago, we did 42 transplants, and we've gradually increased them. In the year just finished, we did 118. So I think knowing that we've helped that many people as a team is a great achievement.
Wow. So how comes you do so many at this hospital? Is it not in every hospital across the UK, or is it just a few?
There are 23 adult transplant units in the country, of which we're one.
Yeah.
And all the hospitals do as many transplants as they can, and we're seeing more and more donors, which means we're doing more and more transplants, which means we can help more and more people.
Wow, that's amazing. So how do you deal with pressure at work?
It's about having the right people around you, making sure that you have the support from your colleagues, and being able to go and relax and enjoy yourself as well. I enjoy coaching my son at rugby, watching him play a bit of tennis, keep myself fit. Good for the mind, good for the body.
That's amazing. So how many people are on your team?
Well, I'm one of 5 surgeons, but I'm just a small part. I mean, we have lots of nurses, we have 4 wards, we have all the backroom staff, all the secretarial staff, all the volunteers, domestics that keep the wards clean. We're part of a huge team.
That's amazing. So how do you balance your work life and your home life? What sort of time are you arriving home?
I think most people would say I manage it very badly. Too much work and not enough life. But it's a case of just making sure that the work is done, making sure you have something to look forward to at the end of the week or the end of the weekend, spending time with my kids, making sure I've got social engagements to ensure you get away from work. Otherwise, it can be very easy to stay.
That is absolutely amazing. Thank you so much, Paul.
You're very welcome, Krystal.
Most people would agree that giving to others is a good thing. On top of this, it can also improve your mental well-being. Small acts of kindness towards other people or larger ones, such as volunteering in your local community, can give you a sense of purpose. It can make you feel happier and more satisfied with life. Sometimes we think of well-being in terms of what we have, our income, our home, or our car. But evidence shows that what we do and the way we think have the biggest impact on mental well-being. Positive mental well-being means feeling good about yourself and the world around you, and being able to get on with life in the way you want. Helping and supporting other people and working with others towards a shared goal is good for our mental well-being. Ever thought about becoming a volunteer at the NHS? We have found an interesting individual that you wouldn't consider being a volunteer in the hospital. Check this out.
Well, I mean, quite frankly, this is payback time, because this hospital has been so good to my family over the years. And I always said, if any of my dogs were good enough, then I would seriously think about it. Because when my son was in here and in rehab, it was amazing. This lady walked in with the dog, and we all felt the same. It was almost as though somebody had opened the door and brought the outside world in. And that is really what people keep telling me. Oh, it's quite ordinary, but once you see a dog on the ward, it's not as scary, it's not as clinical, and it's not as alien as it was when they came in, even if they're only in for a day. So I think it's debatable whether people benefit more because they're in long term or benefit because they've just come in. Because either way, they benefit. I don't know how long the actual PETSIS therapy's been going. It's been going for quite some time. But I think it's great that the NHS allow it. Care homes, I think, have always been easier. But the NHS, there's quite a lot that you have to go through. Once you're on the National Register, you've then got to, I specifically wanted to come in here, specifically. If you're determined to do it, it's worth it. It is, it's worth it.
We're back. I am now joined by Annabelle and Scott. Thank you both for joining us today. Can you tell us how patients and the general public are involved with the QA hospital?
Well, QA's made a really big effort in the last few years to involve patients and the public in what's called patient and public involvement in shaping what we do down at QA and in the NHS in general. And so there's a patient carer and family collaborative group, which is run by the patient experience team. And there's also, in our fantastic research and innovation department, there's a patient research ambassadors group. And people can get involved in any of those. So you just have to go and contact the volunteer office at QA. So it's a really great thing for anybody to get involved in.
That's amazing. So as a volunteer, what do you get out of being involved? So what do you do?
Well, it's been fascinating for me to see a lot more about research and all the things, the really state-of-the-art research that's going on at QA. And we help researchers with writing documents, working out questionnaires for research participants, all sorts of things. We actually can help shape the research that goes on in such a way that those research projects can then be translated through the research laboratory, which Scott runs, into extra important treatments that will make more successful outcomes for patients in Portsmouth. So it's a fantastic opportunity.
Really amazing.
And for me personally, it's great for my brain. It's given me a whole new fascinating career. And we are treated very much, the volunteers down here are treated very much as equal partners in all the activities that we do together. And you get a free Christmas dinner.
Wow.
So what's not to like?
That is amazing. So Scott, what are your thoughts about the NHS and about the QA hospital?
I think the QA hospital in particular is fantastic at engaging with the public. Both generally in terms of the care they give, but especially within research. So Annabelle is a great example of a patient research ambassador. And that is where within research, obviously Annabelle kindly said about the research laboratory helps patients access into clinical trials. It's actually there's a much wider infrastructure which involves research nurses. There's the leadership within the hospital that are on board, but the patient's very much part of that.
That's amazing. Well, both of you do an amazing job at the QA hospital, and thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Staff across the NHS are in contact with more than 1.5 million patients and their families every single day, with around 23 million people visiting their GP or practice nurse every month.
So we know that the NHS helps a lot of people out, loads of different people, and the NHS is often partnered with the military. Now we're going to look back at this VT where the NHS is helping the Air Force.
I am Wing Commander Emma Redman and I am the Commanding Officer of Defence Medical Group South. So I'm responsible for all of the Defence Medical Services personnel from across the Royal Navy, Army and Royal Air Force working here at the Queen Alexandra's Hospital. And that's a mix of doctors, nurses, allied healthcare professionals and healthcare assistants. So from a personal perspective, I've worked either in or alongside the NHS for the last 20 years. I did my nurse training in the NHS and specialised as an operating theatre nurse before joining the Royal Air Force in 2000. And since I joined the Royal Air Force and become part of Defence Medical Services, my work has stayed closely linked to the NHS in secondary healthcare. I think the NHS is a fantastic organisation, and the military has got much stronger links with the NHS over the years. Since we closed our own military hospitals in the UK, we are now very much partnering the NHS to help us provide those suitably qualified and experienced personnel that we require for operations.
We know that the public are keen to support the NHS and will use the 70th birthday to remind them about the many ways they can do this. For instance, by giving blood or joining the organ donor register.
The NHS are working with the University of Manchester and University of Warwick on 2 major projects to collect the memories and stories of staff who have worked in the NHS over the last 70 years, as well as the people it has cared for.
The NHS have launched a website, www.nhs70.nhs.uk, for the public, which includes details of the events they can attend at local and regional levels to celebrate.
That's all from us today. It has been such a pleasure to present live from the Queen Alexandra Hospital. I'm Krystal Prince, and be sure to check out our other live shows on YouTube at CCI TV channel. Goodbye.